What is up, guys? Teddy Cornwell here. Welcome to the Underdog Talk, the world's most underrated podcast on earth. And there's just something about the underdog. But I mean, today you see him hat backward, muscles are hiding under the hoodie. I just know it. I mean, we have the co founder and president of the one and only Arsenal Strength, Mr. Andrew Hall. What is up, sir? How you doing today, man?
Good, Teddy. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate the
Hey,
opportunity to talk about what we're doing.
hey, you guys are doing so much over at Arsenal Strength. And I'm just going to start with $1 million question for those who don't know, who are listening. What is Arsenal Strength, Andrew? Obviously, I have kind of an understanding of what you guys do, what you guys make. But if you wouldn't mind talking a little more about what Arsenal Strength is and even kind of the background of Arsenal Strength being created.
Yeah, man. That's so we started this company to solve issues and to fill a niche that was not being serviced. It was really kind of I would say like a no-brainer. There was literally a market that was being malnourished. They weren't getting, nobody cared about the strength market and having these pieces of equipment that are biomechanically sound that can really go in and solve problems for the more serious lifter. And so when we started the company, it's kind of crazy the evolution of from when we started to kind of what it is today. But our goal is to create the most dominating products in the market, to continue to grow, expand our global footprint, and just to help gym owners win and create the best facilities. That's ultimately our goal.
And Underdog Talk, I did a little research on Arsenal Strength. And I mean, not only has Andrew and his team kind of just revolutionized gyms across the world, he's revolutionized one of the biggest gyms in the world, obviously, Flex Lewis's gym. I know you guys are, that is still accurate, right? You guys are still the main equipment source for his gym, right?
We are so Flex and Alley are minority partners in Arsenal Strength, and they've been so for since 2015. So I've known Flex a long time. He's always been a very good friend. He's obviously one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. But he bought in early as far as seeing what we're doing. And when we started the brand, with any new brand or new business, to get some legitimacy, you needed somebody that was legitimate that could help kind of back it. And that's really been his role when we first started, to kind of help get this thing some feet behind it and some legitimacy from really from the get-go.
It doesn't hurt that you have one of the best bodybuilders of all time, backing you and giving that support to you. Now, I do have to ask, Andrew, many businesses, starting have challenges. So what were your initial challenges in the early stages of, establishing Arsenal Strength and getting it off the ground? And then how did you overcome these challenges as well?
Man, that's the thing that I feel like this journey, the reason that we're being put on this journey for this with this brand is to give and enlighten other people on just the challenges they will face, because anybody can tell you, oh, it's you're not going to face them. That's a lie, because you will face challenges every single day, and you have to be comfortable with accepting you're going to have them and knowing, just being aware that they're going to continue to happen. We're facing more with new challenges today. It's always something, and you have to just become comfortable. When we first started the business, my wife and I, our daughter was 6 months old. We literally sold our house and went all in. So this wasn't a situation where we had wealthy family members, or situation where we came into some money and decided to start a brand. This was, let's sell our house. I've got a wife and a 6-month-old daughter, and we've got to make this work. Sinker, it's the true sink or swim. Not much of a sinker. So you have to just kind of fight and learn that. So our biggest challenges, there's a lot of them, have been just whenever you have any brand or company or service or whatever with growth that fast, you're going to run into challenges, especially if the infrastructure is not there, which it's not going to be there. I mean, very few businesses start with a solid infrastructure and then they kind of go. You have an idea or a product or a solution, and you just throw it out into the market. And if it takes off, you've got to kind of build the infrastructure, behind, after you've already kind of taken off, which is much more difficult and more costly. But at the same time, that's just kind of part of the journey. So ours have always been manufacturing based. Every single time it's been, when we first started the business, we had contract manufacturers that were making products for our brand and then shipping them. And we had several, and we continued to outgrow them very quickly. And then you start running into issues with quality, and that becomes a problem. So in 2019, we decided to buy our own manufacturing facility and really control the process. So we went through those challenges, made that happen, and then that brings on a whole new set of challenges. So those are still challenges today that we're currently dealing with, trying to overcome lead times, post-COVID supply chain, human capital, as far as just having the right people in the right position. So we could talk all day about challenges and how to overcome them. But I think the biggest thing that anybody that's thinking about opening a business, don't be too naive to realize that you are going to have obstacles.
Mhm.
You have to be comfortable and learn how to overcome them and kind of take them one at a time. It's just how it is. It's inevitable.
It is inevitable. And, I think sometimes in life, if you want something bad enough, you just gotta go all in. I think that's people often scoff at me for being like, well, you're going all in on this podcast. That's all I know, Andrew, and that's all you knew as well. You were not a sinker, you were a swimmer. I love that analogy. You were a swimmer. Now, let me ask you this question in a personal one. What did you learn about yourself in these challenging times? Is obviously, your company is succeeding, and I'm sure you went through some challenges as well. What did you learn about yourself as a human being in the startup of Arsenal Strength and the challenges that you guys did overcome?
I always thought that I was a swimmer, as far as, the fight or flight. You're going to go and fight and stand for what you believe. I've always been, if it's a topic or something that I know, I feel very confident in that topic. And obviously with the strength equipment and seeing the lack of care that companies were providing for this market, I felt confident that we had a good solution. So I knew I was pretty relentless and resilient, and I think it just kind of proved, and it built. It's a confidence booster when you can overcome these obstacles on a personal level. And then the thing that I'm every single day trying to be better, and I think it's very, very difficult, but I don't think it's impossible. Is trying to find the balance to continue to be the best entrepreneur and the best business owner and leader. But the most important thing is home and taking care of your family and your kids. That's at the end of the day, the kids don't know or care what new product or new facility you're working on. They just know that you're not there. And I've really tried to be, and I think it's a massive priority to stay present and spend as much time with them, especially with kids like young age, man. Like it goes by so fast and they're only so young, so quick. So I'm still learning how to be a better balanced businessman and a father. I'll never perfect it, but I'm try my damnedest to be the best I can. So.
And I'm shaking my head over here like I have kids. No, I'm only 24. I don't have kids yet. But I think, and I think you're trying your ass off, and that's all that matters in life. No one's going to be perfect at anything. And that's just unfortunately how life goes. If someone's perfect out there, come and tell me I'll give you $1 million, which I don't have, but you're trying your damnedest, and that's all that matters in life. Now, really Arsenal Strength stands out to me in a few different ways. Obviously being so revolutionary, being a top, when you think of top tier, I think of Arsenal Strength. Now, to you, Andrew, how does Arsenal Strength differentiate or is different from other, companies in the fitness equipment industry? How does Arsenal Strength stand out? Obviously, you talked about the quality. Obviously, you talked about, you're now manufacturing on your own. What else does Arsenal Strength stand out in?
It's a good question. I think to sum it all up, it's attention to detail. I think those are the things that we strive to really, make sure we're doing the right things for the customer, really putting the time in on the quality of the product. We've continuously are trying to improve. When I say all this, is not saying like we've got it figured out, because that's far from true. However, that's what we have to strive to do. The attention to detail is really what kind of separated us from the get-go. And I feel like that's really what we have to always continue to focus on, that and innovation. Putting out new products that either people have had in the past, or maybe a new version that's better from a biomechanics and maybe adjustability standpoint, are very, very important. The other thing that separates us, besides like talking about this specific on the equipment, is just how we approach projects and how we approach the sale. We don't approach it as a sale. We're not a transactional company. We do transactions daily. That's how we provide for our employees and how we do things. That's the whole, point of a business, is to have a profitable business. However, and I'll give you an example. Our sales team, we've created a culture and brought in individuals that really try to consult gym owners, whether they're buying one piece or they're buying 300 pieces, whether it's just our product or we're incorporating other brands' products. Because the reality is this: if you have a 30,000 square foot gym, fitness center, whether it's a boutique, whether it's a World Gym or Powerhouse, some of these other national brands, you need variety in your gym. It just doesn't need to be one brand. Like I'm confident in our brand. However, I know that our brand's not for every single demographic of person. You need to have variety. You don't walk into a mall and there's one shop and that's it. Like there's you have to bring different people and have different needs and solutions. So I think our approach is always that. Like, what can we do to help the customer? And I think that's why our referral rate and our growth is so high, is because the customer knows that we truly do care, and that we want to see them win. And if they win, they're going to come back, and as they grow, we'll grow with them. So ultimately, that's the thing that I see other brands really making the mistake. It's all about the transaction or quotas or numbers. And if you're winning and you're doing right to the customer, those things will always come.
I was going to say that if you're doing it the right way, things will go your way anyways. I think that's just how life works. And obviously, you talked about how you guys are the main equipment sourcer for obviously Flex Lewis's gym, which is one of the most popular gyms in, well, I'll say it, the world. But we see the fitness industry and gyms evolving. Can you discuss any, new things that are coming for Arsenal Strength in the future? Anything that you guys have in the works, anything that's in the line that you can talk about, Andrew?
So let me touch on Flex's gym really quick, because it is just the Dragon's Lair gym in Las Vegas. If nobody's ever been, you definitely have to go and check it out. I feel like really post-COVID, there's been such a mass exodus out of California, and Vegas is like the new fitness hub. We have an office and a showroom there as well. I feel like it's important for us to, really be there. And really whenever the Dragon's Lair opened in 21, we actually had our showroom and office within the Dragon's Lair. We sublet some space within that gym, which was incredible. Fortunately for the Dragon's Lair and Flex and Alley, they're growing as well, and they needed to expand that footprint. So about this time last year, that discussion started, and we found a new place in downtown Vegas. That way they could expand. We have our showroom and everything there, and allowed them to add some additional equipment that they needed for their members. So as far as like what we are, some pieces that we're working on, man, there's been one that we've been working on for a long time, way longer than we should, especially with our track record of, we're an 8.5-year-old company and we've got over 85 SKUs. So we've been very, very innovative and active very fast. The thing that we learned is you kind of, when you're innovating and putting out new products that quick, the market becomes, they're just like very hungry, and they anticipate you to do the exact same thing year after year. With all of our growth and issues with supply chain and just managing that growth, it's kind of slowed down some innovation, which is really frustrating from my point of view, because that's the thing really that I enjoy the most, is creating. I like creating and doing that side. That's just kind of my more artistic side. That's kind of where I should be living, to be honest, not on the tactical day-to-day. That's not my strong point. So we do have a new Pen Select line that we've been kind of working on for really the past year, different prototypes and an idea for this. In the short term, we have a brand new reloaded standing chest press that is coming out. We've tweaked some prototypes to make some changes after we've gotten some bodies, different sizes on. So that piece will be out before the end of the year. We're actually already taking orders for that piece. It turned out incredible. There's a few on the market, but this one really kind of separates some of the features, which I'm really excited about people being able to try and watching people, be able to grow safely and really target their chest without so much anterior deltoid and some of the other issues that people have. We're also the one that I think most people we've had discussions with. We have a new pullover machine that we're working on, and that's probably the most excited I've been about any piece we've ever created, to be honest with you, because it's a piece that is, there's not a lot of options out there, and the ones that are out there aren't great. Like some of the older, G's, like the old Nautilus pullover, which was probably like the pinnacle. But then there was some flaws with that. So you take, this was the best option, and you take some features and you try to add to accommodate and make it better. And I really feel like we're going to hit a home run on that one. So we're really hoping to have the second prototype within the next few weeks to kind of nail down, and then we'll continue on that process to have it ready in first quarter of 2024.
Ooh, wow. That got me excited. Now, I do have to ask, how does Arsenal Strength stay abreast of trends and advancements in the fitness industry to constantly deliver top tier equipment? I mean, are you guys having like a research team? Is this a scientific team? Is it an exercise science team? How do you guys constantly stay above the fitness trends, Andrew?
So honestly, it's not anywhere close to that sophisticated. I think the number one thing is we listen and we see what are we hearing, what are we seeing, where are we, you see clips and videos even before Instagram and Reels and all this stuff. Like you watch people in a gym and you're watching them modify pieces to do a certain movement, and then you start thinking it's such a common sense approach, which I feel like is really what we've done from the get-go. It's like, well, if people are having to sit on this piece sideways to get this angle, why don't you just make a piece that does that? And I think realistically, when you take these ideas and you tweak body parts and tweak different angles to hit different areas, and you want to, there's such a science in creating pieces as far as making sure it biomechanically, the strength curve is correct, making sure that it accommodates, as many people as possible. With a machine defined movement, you're only going to be able to accommodate a certain, let's call it 5 foot to 6'6", 6'7", and that's a drastic, height difference and size difference. Then you've got, densities and depth and weight and stuff. It's like, it's never going to be perfect for every single person, but if you can fit the majority of people on a piece, that's going to be the most important feature. So I think we're watching people, and there's been a little bit of a resurgence, and I have to say I feel like we've kind of been at the forefront, really kind of lighting a fire under people. I think a lot of brands and companies that have been kind of stagnant over the past decade or longer are starting to realize that strength is back. And I think we've kind of opened some eyes. I think we punched some people in the mouth, and they're starting to be like, wait, we got to start doing this. And they've become more innovative. So we've kind of jump started the industry a little bit with creating more competition, which is healthy and good. And I'm not as motivated with other brands, like what they're doing. I want to look past. I don't want to copycat, man. Like I don't want to do the same thing that everybody's doing. I want to create new stuff. So back to answering your question, I think just kind of thinking about like our team and our personal, like what are some, pieces that we've never seen, or what are some pieces that were like old school pieces that were great pieces, but they could be better with a new school look or a new school feel. I think that's going to be important. And you have to be in the gym training to know this. Like you can't just read a book or, read some article and know this. These are things that you, like in the trenches, you figure out with the pieces, and to solve problems and to create new products. So I think that's one of the most important things that a lot of the leadership of these brands probably don't do.
And I think I agree totally. You got to use the product and learn from the product to make adjustments to the product and I think it is a in-house thing. I don't think it's a yeah, and I totally agree, especially for gym equipment. I mean, you got to be using that to see the errors, the flaws, and then correct those errors, correct those flaws. Now, you are a very successful entrepreneur as well, and you've really seen a lot from, and I'm sure learned a lot in the business side. So what is your biggest tip for someone who is looking to start a business like you once were, Andrew?
Mm. One thing, and I tell you this from our mistakes. The one thing that we neglected early on to put a lot of focus on, because we were so focused on, we're a sales and marketing brand. Like, my wife is a marketing genius.
Mhm.
She straight up is. I mean, for the budgets that we've had to get the brand to ship to over 60 countries in 8.5 years, she's done a lot of things amazing. So I have to give her props. We should have put more focus on either a financial controller or a CFO early on
Mhm.
to know your true cost. You It's easy to grow that quickly, and it's exciting to sell and all this, but if you don't know your cost, you can run into issues. And I think that's something that we've been fortunate enough to navigate those hurdles, and now we've really starting to build a solid financial team. But it's taken a long time, and we've had some turds, straight up, I'll just be honest, like that, weren't capable. They didn't understand the business, and they really weren't. It wasn't a focus early enough. So having a good attorney and having a good financial team, or even if one of the partners or the individual is more of a financial minded person, I think that's a benefit. They might lack on the sales and marketing, but I feel like there's more people out there that are probably better at sales and marketing than there are strong financials. That's just in our experience. So that's the one thing I would say. Like, really try to work on the infrastructure. And this is something else. And I'm not necessarily saying this for our brand, but this is really good advice that I heard. Whenever you're starting something and you have a plan to exit, or you're trying to start a business or a brand, and then you're trying to sell that, whether it's to private equity, whether it's a strategic buyer, almost like reverse engineer that path. So if you have an idea, and in 3 to 5 years your plan is to sell it, have that in mind from the start and kind of work backwards from what that looks like at the end. That was some advice that I've heard several times from some high level people that have sold very successful businesses, and that makes a ton of sense. When you just kind of go into something because you're passionate about it and you love it, that's probably the most important. But you have to kind of have an end in mind, or like a final goal. Like, what are you really trying to do at the end of the day? And I feel like we started just trying to kind of create this revolution and then solve this opportunity with not an end in mind. And I think that's something that we're looking at now, like, okay, what's our final goal, and where are we really, the final destination. So I think that's important.
And I totally agree on that. And my good buddy Ryan Lochte was on the podcast, and he talked about short-term and long-term goals. And I think that's kind of what you're referring to as well, in a sense, having those short-term goals, having those long-term goals, and really knowing where you're going to go, knowing where you are, knowing where you're going to go, and knowing what you have to do. And now I do have to ask you this: what has been the best and worst part of being a business owner, Andrew?
Hmm. Get some good questions, Teddy. I think the worst part, let me think here. I think the worst part, honestly, is just, um, this is for me specifically. I don't like dealing with legal and attorneys and banks and finances. Like, dealing with some of that to me is the most dreadful. Um, it's obviously specifically to us, changing when we went from contract manufacturer to buying manufacturing. If you really think about it, like, while you're maintaining business and you're still growing revenue, while you're doing that is an absolute nightmare that would really crumble most companies. Um, Try to maintain the production that you have while you're switching manufacturing. It sounds like, oh, it doesn't sound like that big a deal. It's a massive deal, and it crumbles a lot of companies that try it. So I think overcoming that's been the worst part, specifically for me, is that whole process was a nightmare. It was not fun, but it's just part of it, and that's how you get better and learn. Um, I think the best part it's a two-parter. The best part, number one, is being able to create jobs. To me, to have a brand that is so internally, I will just say that to create, over 100 jobs where people that have families, that's the most rewarding, man, because it's giving people opportunity. And I think that's kind of what we're called to do. I think that's why we've been blessed so quickly, just being straight up. And then from an external, thing that has been the best part is just, it's really cool to start a brand, to create a logo and a name and have an idea. And then now be like, have global reckoning, people recognize it all over the world. And that's kind of crazy to be in the talks when people are, the Kleenex effect, where they're talking about, a tissue, they call it a Kleenex. Like people in the South call it, any soda, a Coke. Like we're starting to get that where they're talking about like us with plate loaded, which back in the day, I've got to give a nod to Hammer Strength. Like they were the OGs of plate loaded. And now we're starting to be like, we're talked about like that. And that's kind of surreal. And that's just really cool to see an idea to become, it's taken a lot of steps and a lot of time, but really not that much time. 8.5 years is not that long in the grand scheme of things to already kind of becoming that brand and that name. So it's very grateful and excited.
And I will add for one thing, and I think Andrew is being very successful in a for his industry a very quick period of time. I think it takes, if you guys are starting something, it takes a while. So do not give up on it if it hasn't seen the fruition just yet. It takes time. I mean, this podcast started out a year ago, and every day we're getting bigger and better. And I'm sure, Andrew's company is getting bigger and better every day. It takes time. But with that being said, Andrew is being very modest because the amount of effort that he and his team put in is very, 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 very intense. And I think you also have to put that effort in if you're going to get that effort back to you. Now, I do have a few more questions for you, Andrew. Obviously, the 2024 Mr. Olympia has been announced that it is going to Las Vegas. Now, do you see Arsenal Strength playing a key role or even being involved in the 2024 Mr. O?
That's a good question. I'm glad it's back in Vegas. Florida's amazing. I mean, it's hard not to be Florida, but this is just my opinion. The Olympia doesn't seem like the Olympia when it's not in the desert. That's just, it feels like Las Vegas ever since I've been such a fan of bodybuilding, for a long time. And I used to compete years ago. I'm glad it's going back to Vegas. I think it'll be good. The other thing that it's not that we don't believe in it. I just want to do things different. I don't want to set up a booth at a trade show. That's to be honest, it's a waste of freaking money.
Yes.
It's a waste of money. I want to figure out a way to be strategic and to create an experience for people if they are in Vegas, for us to utilize, the Dragon's Lair.
Yes.
All of our products are in there. They have other brands as well, but it's like that experience and that kind of, creating nothing, working with Flex and the Dragon's Lair. That's something we haven't talked about on a marketing standpoint, but I think we definitely need to have more of a presence there for next year. But I don't think it's going to be in a booth in an expo hall. That just seems bland and very forgettable.
And you got to stick to your guns. I mean, that's 100% agreed. And I think to give your brand credit and to give Flex's gym credit as well. I mean, 2022, the O was in Las Vegas, and I mean, it seemed like every bodybuilder was training at Flex's gym. So I mean, right there, they're using your awesome equipment. They're learning about Arsenal Strength if they don't know about it because they're using it. And that's not just the bodybuilders. That's people who are coming from all across the world to watch the Mr. Olympia and training at Flex's awesome gym. So I think, again, you guys are going to be, it's awesome for you that the O is coming back to Las Vegas because the main gym in Las Vegas is Flex's gym. So I think that's going to be an incredible, outreach again, just for you guys from people all across the world who come to, see the O. And I do have to ask you this. What did you think about the O this year, especially the Open? And did you watch it this year, Andrew?
So I honestly, I didn't. This is sad. I think I probably fell asleep 2 years in a row. Like I always try to follow it and see who's who. And I know a lot of the competitors either from on a personal level or there's 1 degree of separation type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this year, from looking at pictures and what I did see, I mean, last year personally, I thought Lunsford, he's going from the 212 to what he's done is unbelievable. He's just got such a marketable look. He seems like such a good man, and a good ambassador for bodybuilding. And I mean, his physique is insane. I don't think, from a conditioning standpoint, I don't think anybody's going to ever outcondition Hottie. Like, I don't see it happening. But I think that freaky look is, it's so, subjective. I personally think Derek is a better advocate for the sport of bodybuilding, and I think that was the right call. But if you look at it really from a muscularity and conditioning, not many people are beating Hottie. I also was pulling for Samson because there's something about seeing such a large man with crazy shape and just that massive. He is highly impressive. So that it could have went really any direction, but I think Derek definitely, the improvements he continues to make are pretty staggering. So I much respect to him, what he's done. And he seems, again, at the end of the day, past bodybuilding, eventually he's going to be done with bodybuilding. It's how is he a good human? And I do feel like he is. So I hope he reigns for a long time. I think it'd be good for bodybuilding for sure.
And there's his signature right there. We've had Derek Lunsford on the show, and obviously, respect to Hottie because his conditioning is top notch, as you mentioned, Andrew. I don't think what he does is incredible, and he'll be back. He'll be back. Let's just say how it is. Hottie will be back, and it's gonna be another fight. It's gonna be another fight, but I do believe Derek had the edge this year, and to give, to add on to what you said, Derek is one of the nicest human beings I've ever talked to in my life on this podcast. One of the most, down to earth, humble human beings that I have ever been able to talk to in my life. And I've talked to some pretty amazing human beings, but Derek is, what he can do for the sport is phenomenal. Now, my final question to you, Andrew, is this is the Underdog Talk podcast, and there's something about the underdog. When to you did you feel like an underdog in your moment in your life, and how did you overcome that?
I was an athlete growing up. I've always never been afraid. I probably didn't have the most skill, like just naturally God-given talent in a lot of ways. I've always been a hard worker, and I think I had skills and ability. So I've never felt from an athletic side like I was really an underdog. I always just wanted to be the best that I could be, and to, put in the work. Honestly, whenever we started the brand in the company, that risk, that's probably the most I've ever felt like an underdog. And really, it's like in my mind, in my heart, I didn't feel that way, but it was more from the external, what you're hearing. People are like, oh, that's, it's such a saturated market, you're never going to make it. I mean, we heard a lot of this from really close friends, and they were genuine. Some of them were just people are just negative, and you have to just let that roll off. But I think a lot of people, most people were genuinely worried. I mean, even like I think our families, my wife's family and my family were both like, are you going to feed our granddaughter? Like, we had a 6-month-old daughter. So I think there was a lot of overcoming that had to be done, where we did feel like, we were an underdog. We're still the underdog. And I've kind of become comfortable with that, and almost you have a chip on your shoulder, or you kind of feel like you have something to prove. I think that's important. And I think that's, every day I want to try to grow our business. I want to continue to, create jobs. That's the thing that motivates me, and that's the things that I feel that can prove people wrong. I do enjoy that. So maybe it's a good thing to be the underdog versus the opposite, because you have a lot more at stake really when you're not the underdog. So we just want to continue to get better, man. And I think you just have to be comfortable with that feeling to get into any business.
100%. And there is nothing like being the underdog. I'll just say that. I've always been the underdog in my life, and this podcast is the underdog. I'm a random little guy who gets to talk to some of the most awesome guests in the world like yourself, Andrew. And to add on to that, I think if people tell you you can't do it, do not take that to heart, because obviously, some people told you, Andrew, and Arsenal Strength is one of the best in the world. Some people have told me a million times and they still tell me, and we're just going through those obstacles every day. So if someone tells you that you can't, I would just say, don't laugh at them in the face, because they're trying to be real with you. But at the end of the day, if you want something bad enough, you'll do what it takes. And I think that's what it comes down to. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Hall, the co-president or the co-founder and president of the revolutionary Arsenal Strength. Now, before we go, Andrew, the floor is yours. Where can we find Arsenal Strength? What is that Instagram of yours? What is Arsenal Strength's, social medias? The floor is yours, sir.
Oh, man. So myarsenalstrength.com, it's our website. That's the best way to reach, ask questions about the product. Obviously, Instagram, it's Arsenal_strength. We're very active on socials. We've got an incredible marketing team and social media strategists that can help answer questions as well. I think the best thing, if somebody is planning a facility, or they have an idea for a gym, or they have an existing gym and they're trying to, make it better and just improve, or, upgrade, talk to one of our team members. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, especially if you've already talked to other sales reps for other companies. I think you'll feel a more comfortable approach. So I highly recommend. Emails are great, but there's something about a personal touch, having a conversation with another human that truly wants to understand like what their goal is. So reach out to one of our sales team. You can do that via the website. Man, my social personally, I get all the time. I'm not very active on there. I mainly post things about my family, and maybe some stuff with work. I need to be better at that, but it's something that I've personally just kind of struggled, and it's not been a priority. But my name on Instagram is Andrew Hall. So you feel free to anybody. I mean, man, anything. The biggest thing I want to take away is this. Obviously, I'm proud of what we're doing. The ultimate goal, and I feel like why we're called to be doing this and why we've been successful, is to help people see a light and to realize that they can do it. Man, I'm not that smart. I'm just hungry and relentless. And realistically, if I can help somebody and guide them to avoid some of the obstacles and pain, or whether it's financial or physical, whatever it is, if I can be a resource, I want to be that. So feel free to reach out to me directly. You can message me. Email it's super easy. It's Andrew@myarsenalstrength.com. But thanks for letting me be on here and to have a few words. I really appreciate it. And the best of luck to you, man. Anything that we can do to help, please let me know.
Anything that we can do to help, let me know. And guys, first person to get any piece of Arsenal equipment, that can be clothing as well. We'll go easy on you guys. Send me a screenshot. I'll get you a special present over for you. I mean, if you want to be the best, you gotta use the best. Yeah, that makes sense. You gotta use the best, and Arsenal Strength is the best. You guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Until next time, guys, Andrew and the Underdog